A body lies on the sand, but it is not whole. The skin has been peeled away in one piece, like a jacket taken off and set aside. The muscles are gone. The bones are bare. Someone has scraped this person clean, taken out everything soft, and left only a skeleton on a mat by the sea. Then, carefully, the skin goes back on. Sticks are pushed inside the arms and legs to hold the shape. Ash and plant fibers are packed where the organs used to be. The face gets a mask of black clay, smooth and still. This was not done to a king. It was done to a fisherman, or his wife, or their baby, on a beach with no name we know. This happened on the coast of the Atacama Desert, where northern Chile meets southern Peru today. The Atacama is the driest desert on Earth outside the poles. Rain almost never falls there. The people who lived on this coast were not farmers with fields or officials with records. They were fishers and shellfish gatherers, moving along a thin strip of land between tall, dry mountains and a cold, fish-rich ocean. They had no cities. They had no kings, no palaces, no written laws. They left no letters, no lists, no names carved anywhere. And yet, along this same stretch of coast, they built something that would outlast almost every empire that came after them. The oldest, deliberately preserved human bodies ever found. The oldest of these bodies date to around 5000 BC, roughly 7,000 years ago. That is about 2,000 years before the first Egyptian mummies were made. Egypt mummified its pharaohs and its nobles, people with names we still know today, like Tutankhamun. The people on this desert coast are called the Chinchorro, a name given to them by modern archaeologists, borrowed from a nearby bay. We do not know what they called themselves. Chilean researcher Bernardo Arriaza, who has studied these bodies for decades, calls them one of the oldest known mummy traditions in the world. But the strangest part is not how old they are. It is who they chose to preserve. In Egypt, mummification was for the powerful. Kings, priests, and their families got the treatment. Ordinary farmers were buried in the sand and left to dry out on their own. The Chinchorro did the opposite. They mummified fishermen and old women. They mummified toddlers. They mummified babies who died before they were even born. Rich or poor made no difference, because as far as we can tell, there was no rich or poor. This was a small, mostly equal society, with no writing to explain its own choices. So the question sits there, unanswered, for 7,000 years. Why would people with so little spare time and so few tools spend it preserving every single one of their dead? The earliest style, which archaeologists call the Black Mummies, took the most work. The head, arms, and legs were removed from the body. The skin was taken off almost whole, like peeling a glove. The flesh was stripped from the bones, and the organs were removed and set aside. The bare skeleton was then reinforced with sticks, tied together with plant fiber, so the body would not collapse. The empty spaces were packed with ash, soil, and grass. The skin was pulled back over the top, sewn shut, and painted black from head to toe with a paste made from manganese, a black mineral ground into powder. A clay mask finished the face. Around 2500 BC, the style changed. Instead of taking the body apart, the Chinchorro made small cuts, removed the organs through them, and packed the body from the inside without fully dismantling it. Instead of black paint, they coated the skin in red ochre, a rust-colored clay pigment. A wig made from real human hair was often fitted onto the head, sometimes gathered from the living. And nearly every one of these bodies, black or red, wore a mask. Flat, wide-eyed, expressionless, made of clay and paint, staring straight ahead. That mask is the one thing that stayed the same for 3,000 years, through every change in style and technique. It is the closest thing the Chinchorro left to a face for us to remember them by. One clue may explain part of the puzzle. The rivers that fed this stretch of desert carry unusually high levels of arsenic, a natural poison found in the region's volcanic rock. Some researchers, including Ariaza, have proposed that Chinchorro mothers drinking this water suffered far more miscarriages and infant deaths than normal. If that is true, a small community could have been surrounded by grief almost constantly, burying more babies than adults some years. That might explain why so many of the mummified bodies are unborn or newborn. But this is a theory, not a proven fact. Nobody can test what a Chinchorro parent was thinking 4,000 years before writing existed anywhere on Earth. So much else about these people is simply gone. They left no language behind, so every word they spoke, every story they told around a fire, every name they gave their children, disappeared the moment the last speaker died. Their homes were built from cane, reed, and animal hide, materials that rot fast, so almost nothing of their villages survived. We do not know their songs. We do not know their gods, if they had any, or what they thought happened after death, beyond the fact that they clearly thought something did. Entire lifetimes of belief and memory vanished without a trace. What was left behind was not their world. It was only their bodies, and the masks on their faces. The reason any of this survived at all comes down to the desert itself. The Atacama is so dry that in some parts, no rain has ever been recorded falling. The ground is full of natural salts and nitrates that pull moisture out of anything buried in it. Even without human effort, bodies left in this sand would dry out and last a very long time. The Chinchorro's deliberate work, the peeling, the packing, the painting, only added to what the desert was already doing for free. That combination, a body prepared by hand and then sealed inside the driest ground on the planet, is why more than 200 of these mummies still exist today. Some with skin, hair, and painted faces still intact. For thousands of years, the desert kept this secret. Then, in 1917, a German archaeologist named Max Uhle found some of these bodies near the Chilean port city of Arica and described them to the wider world for the first time. In the 1940s, an American archaeologist named Junius Bird dug further and confirmed just how old they really were, far older than anyone had expected. Since then, hundreds more Chinchorro mummies have been found, some by scientists digging carefully, others uncovered by accident, by construction crews, or by wind stripping away a thin layer of sand. Each new body found adds a face, but never a name, and never an answer to why they were made this way. The strange part is that the desert that protected these bodies for 7,000 years is no longer protecting them. In recent decades, the air around Arica has grown more humid, partly from a changing climate and partly from the growth of the modern city nearby. Some of the oldest black mummies, kept in a museum collection, began to soften and turn to dark ooze within weeks. Researchers at Harvard, led by microbiologist Ralph Mitchell, found that bacteria already living on the skin, harmless in dry air, turned active and started eating the ancient skin once moisture reached it. Bodies that survived the driest place on Earth for thousands of years were breaking down in a matter of months. In 2021, UNESCO added the Chinchorro Mummies and their settlement sites to its World Heritage List, officially recognizing them as one of humanity's most important and most fragile records of the ancient past. Conservators in Arica now keep the most vulnerable mummies in climate-controlled cases, tracking humidity down to the percentage point, trying to hold off decay that the desert used to handle on its own for free. It is a strange turn. A method of preservation invented 7,000 years ago by people with no metal tools and no written instructions is now being propped up by refrigeration units and humidity sensors, built by people who still cannot say for certain why the original preservation was done. Look closely at any Chinchorro mummy, and the mask is still the first thing you notice. Wide, hollow eyes, a flat, calm mouth. No sign of fear, no sign of pain, just a smooth, painted face looking out from ash-colored skin. Some archaeologists think the mask was meant to give the dead person a kind of permanent identity, a face that would not decay the way real skin does. Others think it may have been made to look less human and more like an ancestor, something between a person and a spirit. Either idea fits the little we know. Neither one can be proven. The mask keeps its expression and keeps its secret, no matter which visitor stands in front of it. The Chinchorro kept mummifying their dead for close to 3,000 years, roughly as long as the entire span of ancient Egyptian civilization, from its first pharaoh to its last. But where Egypt mummified a narrow slice of the population, all of the wealthy, all of them, the Chinchorro tradition ran through generation after generation of ordinary fishing families, with no ruler ever signing off on it, and no priesthood ever recorded explaining it. It was not a royal project. It was not a national religion written into law. It was simply something this community kept doing, on a stretch of coastline with no name, long before anyone else on the planet had thought to try it at all. Today, conservators in Arica can measure the humidity around a 4,000-year-old mummy down to a fraction of a percent. They can identify the exact bacteria breaking down its skin. They can rebuild, with tweezers and glue, a crack in a black clay mask that has held its shape since before Stonehenge was built. What they still cannot do is ask the one question that matters most. Why? Why the babies? Why the fishermen? Why everyone, and not just the powerful? The mask on the sand keeps looking straight ahead, painted, patient, and silent, the way it has for 7,000 years, holding the one answer nobody has ever been able to take from it. More forgotten history every week. Subscribe so it isn't lost twice.